Stay tuned to Cardinal Television. Commotion is coming up next. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Commotion, CTV's pop culture debate show. I'm your host, Caitlin Murphy. The rules of Commotion are as follows. 3 panelists will be given 6 topics to discuss, rant, and rave about. At the end of the show, a winner will be chosen by yours truly, who will then have 30 seconds to talk about whatever they want. Now, let's introduce today's panelist. First off is Lainey Lucas. Next is Chris Murray. And finally, Ed Vivenzio. All right, good luck, panelists, and let's get started. Last Sunday, the second presidential debate aired. The 2 candidates answered host questions, as well as questions from the undecided voters panel. Who won the debate? Was this debate better than the previous one? We'll go ahead and start off with Lainey.
Hillary definitely won the debate. Most of the time when Trump was talking, he didn't know solid facts. He went off on tangents all the time about his kind of personal views against Hillary and certain attacks that he was getting from the media, and he was trying to explain himself half the time, and he wasn't even talking about the issues that the people actually cared about. So Hillary definitely won.
All right, Chris?
I agree that Hillary won, and I actually like this debate a lot better than the first one. I like the open floor, asking panelists questions and whatnot. I felt that it started off sort of on the right track. Everyone was calm, and then it became finger pointing. And I think that the moderators asking questions, I think they started off at least asking Hillary the real questions and then asking Trump, kind of finger pointing questions. But I think towards the end they started pointing fingers at Hillary too to kind of balance it out. But overall, I think Hillary definitely won this debate, and she's definitely got my vote.
All right, Ed?
I have to agree with these two. I think that Hillary won. I think America lost. I do think that Trump really he had a chance to come out stronger because I feel that he does say a lot of things that would get a vocal public riled up to where a poll would show him winning a debate, but he just can't give facts, and whenever he's in the corner, he just starts picking on minorities, women, Hillary Clinton, or her husband, President Clinton, for things that have no reflection on her character.
All right, and as we all know as well, on Wednesday was the third and final presidential debate. And one of the biggest talking points of that debate is at the end of it, Trump refused to agree that he would concede and allow Hillary to have the formal victory if she were to win the vote. Now, what do you guys think about this sort of rhetoric? Because we've never really seen it before in a debate.
I think it's just sort of classic Trump. I mean, 2 weeks ago he was saying that if Hillary won, he would, support her, and then immediately changes his mind on that. I think it's the same thing he's been doing. He's just a sore loser, and I don't think he's qualified to run the country.
This is the same person who during the Republican primaries refused to agree that he would support the Republican Party's nominee had it not been him. I do think, though, when you raise the stakes and make it the leader of our country, and we do have a proud tradition, and it was brought up at the debate, we've always had a peaceful transfer of power in this country, and I do think that is something that this country should pride itself on as a nation, and I do think it is just disgusting that he wouldn't simply say, you know what, I lost. He doesn't have to like it, but acknowledge fact is fact.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I think he's being so disrespectful to our American traditions, the American people, and just to the election in and of itself. He's just completely disregarding all of our traditions.
Now, do you guys think he may be pandering to his group? Because I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but a couple weeks ago, a person at a rally where Mike Pence was speaking actually said, if Hillary wins, should we lead a revolution? And to Mike Pence's credit, he said no. But do you think comments and mentality in that in his group and his supporters is what's causing Trump to say these sorts of things?
I think it's definitely possible. I mean, there's the diehard Trump supporters who I would class as a new breed of hardcore Republican. They don't necessarily know the policies. They just go with his fear mongering and his aggressive tones and whatnot, and I think they just kind of blindly follow whatever he says.
All right, well, good discussion. We'll go on to the next question. The new Ghostbusters film was released on DVD last week. The movie was incredibly famous for the amount of hatred it received. When the trailer was released, it instantly became one of the most disliked videos on YouTube. Some blame the hate on the all-female cast, while others say it was just another unnecessary remake. Now, why do you think this movie received so much hate? We'll start off with Chris this time.
I don't think it has anything to do with the all-female cast. I think that's maybe just something that originally threw people off. I think it's just the remake in general. Hollywood is known, especially nowadays, for remaking movies that just don't need to be remade. And Ghostbusters is sort of a classic of the past, and that's sort of just like remaking something like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's something that the original cast is iconic, the characters were iconic. It doesn't need to be remade, and especially not in this kind of way.
Once again, I have to agree with Chris. I do think that Ghostbusters is one of those movies that has its time and place, and that's where it belongs in terms of the setting of the film. I don't think you can modernize it, and I honestly do think that giving it the all-female cast was just an attempt to get people to go see it as like this, oh look, Hollywood, we're being progressive. And I have no problem with Hollywood being progressive. I think they need to be more progressive. However, being progressive just for the sake of getting ticket sales is terrible, and it never leads to quality films.
Amy?
I agree. The remake was definitely the wrong kind of move, but there is definitely an impact on female society because women are just being kind of degraded in the movie because there's so much humor that just is bad. It was comparable, when I was reading reviews, it was comparable to like fart jokes. And these are supposed to be like scientists, physicists. They're supposed to be really intelligent women, but they're making these like terrible jokes that are not funny and just don't really come across well and make women look kind of stupid. And it's an all-female cast.
And when the trailer doesn't make you laugh, it really is not a good setup for the actual movie itself. You know, the original is just a classic. It's got classic lines. It's got a huge variety of humor, but the trailer just seems like a lot of, as you said, you know, the fart jokes, sort of the Adam Sandler brand of comedy. You know, some slapstick in there. Does not seem the same as the original.
Yeah, I feel it was like, look, women can be funny too and play leading roles, but they tried to give it an edgy humor that just didn't work. And I will be honest, I didn't go out and see the movie. I saw the trailer, I saw the teasers and all that stuff, but I just said this isn't a film that's worth my time because I think we all can remember the first time we saw Ghostbusters. It's one of those films that you just grow up with.
Now, do you guys think necessarily that this movie bombed because of the fact that it's a remake, or like you said, that the script was just so bad? Because we also are living in the age of remakes. I mean, we've had Pete's Dragon, we're getting a new Harry Potter franchise. I mean, Grease Live, the Rocky Horror Picture Show is getting remade. So could it be the screenwriting that failed this movie instead of just the fact that it's a remake?
Well, I don't exactly agree that it bombed. I mean, I didn't see it myself, but I watched a lot of clips and the trailer, and it wasn't terrible. It wasn't awful. And I actually talked to someone who just saw the movie the other day, and she said it was actually pretty funny. But when I brought up to her, like, the view that I was talking about kind of degrading women and their intelligence, she was like, when I think about it, yeah, that wasn't really great of them to do that, but it was funny to her.
Yeah, like we've said, I mean, there's a lot of remakes going on, and then also like new additions. Like, for example, 2 summers ago, when the new Mad Max film was released, I went and saw that because I'm a huge fan of the originals, but I honestly thought that the new one was better than the old one. So I don't think it's necessarily that it's a remake. I think it's just lousy, cheap writing.
I think that remakes have an uphill battle to begin with because there is such a nostalgic feeling we have with them that we have our expectations set so high, like, oh yeah, they're going to have modern actors and better graphics and better technology. It'll have to be so much better. And then when it doesn't live up to that expectation, which I think it is really hard to do, especially when we've built such a cult of nostalgia around it, that we just end up hating the movie more than being able to say, you know what, okay, it was an okay movie. I mean, if I heard that they want to remake Back to the Future, I can easily see it being technologically better, but it's never going to replace the memories I have of the first time I ever saw Back to the Future with my father. So I mean, I think that's a problem that remakes have, is trying to recapture that nostalgia.
All right, well, great discussion, guys, so far. We will come back with the next two questions after this break.
Hey guys, this is my teenage friend Fred.
Rad! Hey, pal, you want to pay attention to the road?
Relax, man, I got it.
Look, my man, if your bad driving gets me killed, you better hope you die too, or I will haunt you silly. And I'm not just gonna float over your bed like, woo! I'm gonna be making a more annoying noise, like, ah! And instead of wearing those long white robes, I think I'll wear something more form-fitting and upsetting. The other ghosts will look and be like, wow, we've never seen that before.
And welcome back to Commotion. Let's get started on our next set of topics. Friday, October 21st is actress Carrie Fisher's birthday. She is best known for her role as Princess Leia in the popular Star Wars franchise. And we thought this would be the perfect excuse to ask, which Star Wars film is the best? We'll start with Ed on this one.
Well, I may just be a scruffy-looking nerf herder, but I know that Episode 5 is truly the greatest Star Wars film. That one is The Empire Strikes Back, and that has some of those iconic scenes in it that I just feel, yes, the others are good, except one, but 5 is just so many of those iconic scenes put into one movie. You've got the Battle of Hoth, which I think is the greatest battle depicted in the franchise. You've got the introduction of Yoda for the first time, going chronologically. You have the famous scene where Han is frozen in carbonite, which leads to the classic line with Carrie Fisher saying, "I love you," and Han just responding, "I know," before going to what we believe as certain death. And we also have the fight between Vader and Luke, which gives us the line that, well, not actually, we get the "No, Luke, I am your father" line before his hand is chopped off. And those are the things that people who don't watch Star Wars immediately just know from pop culture.
All right, Lainey?
In all honesty, I've never watched a Star Wars film in its entirety, and people make me feel bad about that all the time, so don't worry, I know. But I actually was asking a lot of people about it because I was curious once I kind of stumbled upon the question, and a lot of guys who I asked said 3 and 6 were about their favorites, because 3 was when it became like visually more appealing and a little bit more advanced in graphics, and then 6 because it kind of encompassed the story altogether. But when I asked a few female friends, they were a little bit more like, oh, I didn't like the progression of it. Like, as the movies went on, they felt like the quality was kind of degraded a little bit, just because it got like way too into graphics. It was like losing its storyline, and so I just kind of picked up on 2 different gender perspectives that I thought were really interesting there.
All right, Chris?
I'm going to pull a wild card and go with Episode 7, The Force Awakens. And this, while it wasn't the first one I saw in theaters, it was the first, midnight release I went to, and it was probably the most exciting midnight release I've ever been to. So, watch out, ladies. Here comes some Star Wars information. I would argue that while the Battle of Hoth, no doubt, is fantastic, the Battle of the Rebellion base at Maz's headquarters is amazing. The visuals are obviously way better because of the use of well done CG. We see in the prequels that the CG is quite terrible and it totally ruins the movie. But in Episode 7, I feel like they really took their time. They did a great job having the X-wings coming flying in over the water, having the water spray. It was awesome. Poe Dameron leading the fleet, flying around, blasting. He goes on like a 15 kill streak or something crazy. And then we got Han walking around blasting people. He does that kind of dainty little over-the-shoulder shot there. Chewie even comes out with his bowcaster. We got Finn with the lightsaber, which I know is pretty controversial, a non-Jedi holding a lightsaber, but then we got the traitor meme when the stormtrooper comes out with the electric what have you. And I liked it because they stuck and they almost, I don't think, a lot of people said that they went too much with the original movies, but I think they did a fair job with it. I think J.J. Abrams did a great job with it. I wish he could do the next ones. I thought Kylo Ren was a good villain. I thought I didn't have a problem with him being, too pretty and too young when he took off his mask, but I thought his mask was cool, his voice was cool, the way that he's, Vader's biggest fan is cool. I think that it was a great setup for the next trilogy, and I hope that the rest of them will continue to be as great.
All right, great discussion. I know for sure that I am pre-ordering my Rogue One tickets the second they come out. The biggest buzz to come out of the political campaign recently was, of course, the famous Ken Bohn. Kenneth Bohn was an undecided voter at the second presidential debate who asked the candidates a question about the conservation of energy. Within seconds, Ken Bohn became one of the hottest topics on the internet. His sweater and mustache have now become iconic Halloween costumes, including, unfortunately, yes, the sexy Ken Bohn costume. Is Ken Bohn just a short-term fad, or is he the hero that this country deserves? We will go ahead and start with Lainey on this one.
I think he's definitely just a short fad. I barely have heard much about him recently on social media. And I do remember when I was watching the debate, just kind of laughing when I did see him, just because he's such an interesting character. But it's definitely just a passing fad. I don't even hear much about him anymore at all.
All right, Chris?
I don't know. I think Ken Bohn could be the next, living legend. I think that Harambe's time has come and gone, literally and now, in a spiritual sense. And I think someone needs to replace that high honor of great and justice and the representation of, the American culture. And I think Ken Bohn is just the man to do it. I was definitely disappointed he wasn't moderating the third debate, but, who knows? Maybe we'll see him around.
I think Ken Bohn is going to stick around for a while. I do think he is a short-term fad, but I don't think his flame has run out yet. Andy Warhol famously said that in the future everyone will be famous for 15 minutes, and I think he might run a few minutes longer. I think that he provides something to this country that we haven't seen yet, and that is, in this debate, we haven't seen good, clean humor, and I think his memes and just him in general and all the buzz he's gotten has provided that clean humor. Yes, we've made fun of both candidates, and it's been incredibly nasty. We've had nasty women and a really nasty, I think he's a man, maybe an orange. But I think that Ken Bohn is allowing us to be funny about the debates, but in a nice way.
All right, and you mentioned clean, and I apologize. I'm going to have to kill everyone's Ken Bohn dreams, because actually my next question about him is, it found out on Reddit. He posted comments, very explicit and quite frankly creepy comments, about staring at Jennifer Lawrence's backside when her nudes leaked. So this question comes to, does the internet just ruin everything for us?
What Ken Bohn does in his spare time when he's not on camera, that's up to him. And nothing, he's not hurting anyone, he's just doing whatever he does by himself. I'm sure even Harambe probably did some dirty things off camera. But I think that Ken Bohn deserves the spotlight that he has, and I don't think any amount of little Reddit posts can take him down.
I think that as a nation we've become too politically correct, and we have cheapened the value of our First Amendment rights. And yeah, what he said, I think is creepy. And I think it is a weird thing to post on the internet, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have the right to say it. That doesn't mean that he's any less of a human being for saying it. And that doesn't mean that we should judge him as harshly as society wants to for it. We have become a society that only sees things in black and white. In reality, we're living on a gray scale. So he's done good things, he's done bad things. I've done good things, I've done bad things. Everyone in this studio has done both good and bad things. And the two people that we are going to inevitably elect president have done incredibly good and incredibly bad things. So I think we just need to chill out.
Very deep with that Ken Bohn question.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Lainey?
Wow. I completely agree, but I don't know, that kind of just ruins his whole image of being the clean character that kind of comes out of the debate. Because people, especially our generation, are so politically correct about everything that's going on. And we hate when certain things are taken the wrong kind of way. Certain words are always taken really, really poorly. And so I think this kind of really ruins his image.
All right, yeah, well, rest in peace, both Harambe and Ken Bohn.
Harambe lives on.
All right, great job so far, guys. And all of our panelists, I have to say, are definitely on fire tonight. But only one can be the winner. So find out who after our last two topics, which will be discussed after this break. Welcome back for the final segment of Commotion. Over the past year, Netflix has lost $1.2 billion in free cash flow. The company has now had 2 consecutive quarters where they were unable to pick up 500,000 new customers. Could this spell the end of Netflix? And what steps should Netflix take to save their company? I'll start with Ed.
Well, I don't think this is the end of Netflix. I think that we are entering a golden age for internet streaming because people our age, the millennial generation, is tired of cable television. We hate how much it costs. We hate that we can't just pick and choose what we want, and we hate appointment TV. Our lives are so busy that we just don't do it. And yes, cable TV is still around because like it's just going to keep growing. We can watch shows that have been canceled for years. We can watch shows on our time, at our own pace. It is truly what consumerism wants out of media consumption.
All right, Lainey?
I completely agree. That was a pretty good answer. With Netflix now, it's our entire lives and our generation are online. And everything that we do is connected to the social network. So it only makes sense that Netflix would only progress from here. In all honesty, I think with their inability to pick up more users is because everyone has Netflix or is on someone else's Netflix account, and this is just like their plateau.
Yeah, Chris?
I agree that it's a plateau. We actually discussed it in advertising class last semester that Netflix is kind of at that point where you either have it or you don't, and if you don't have it, you're really not looking into getting it. And it's been around for so long and has so many users now that everyone who has it, they're using it normally, and I think that they're losing customers because of the irregularity of having the movies that you want to watch on there. I know, some movies that are on there one week are taken off the next week and then put on the next week, and it's irregular and it's hard to control. And in 2016, there's new companies, new streaming services all the time. Like Ed said, I think this is the downward slope of cable and the upward slope of internet streaming, and I think Netflix needs to do something bold in order to save their company.
Now, I know when we talked about kind of similar, you brought up advertising, and Ed brought up how our generation is, very pick and choose kind of thing. Could part of Netflix's issue be that we're just a generation who are so hard to advertise to? I mean, it seems like as a whole, we just pick the most random things to be interested. Ken Bohn, for example, we just picked him up out of nowhere. So do you think it's also because maybe companies haven't been able to keep up with our short-term memories?
No. I do not believe that it's hard to advertise to our generation because companies are still incredibly successful at it. I just think that, like Chris said, Netflix has reached that point of plateau. I don't believe it has anything to do with advertising because companies advertise to us in all ways. Companies go onto Twitter and Facebook with us and do this community interaction that seems genuine when in reality it's just a ploy to get us to be brand loyal to them. That's not the issue. I just think that Netflix has reached that point where it's plateaued and other companies have kind of swooped in and taken a bite out of Netflix, their niche.
I think it definitely is really hard for companies to advertise to, especially people our age. I know if I'm watching a YouTube video and an ad pops up, I hit that skip button as soon as I can, and I'm never paying attention to the advertisement, which is the problem. They can put it in your face, like on an app. When you're playing an app and an ad pops up, you try to exit out immediately as possible. So you definitely see it, but they're looking for the engagement, is what makes the advertising companies money. And I don't know, nobody really knows on how we can truly engage that.
But that's only one facet. We still have, like I said, on Twitter or Facebook, we still have companies that engage with us. We like brand names on social media. We wear shoes that predominantly display that little Nike check. We have our purses with the logo put right on it. I mean, advertising is just as easy now for our generation as it was 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Right, well, good discussion. I know I can't have much of an input because personally I have ad blocker, so I don't think I've seen an ad on the internet in about a year and a half. Now we're going to go to our final Commotion question, which is about folk and rock singer Bob Dylan, who was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. He is the first singer-songwriter to ever be granted this award. Despite this high honor, Dylan has not responded to the Swedish Academy to accept the award. As a matter of fact, it seems that only his manager has acknowledged it on Facebook. Does this mean Dylan doesn't want the award, and should the award go to someone else? We'll finish off with Lainey.
I agree. It was not in good taste.
As a Bob Dylan fan, I got to say that this is classic Bob Dylan, to not care about an award, not care about media presence. I know in like past interviews they've asked him stuff like, where do you get inspiration for your songs and whatnot, and he just gives the most vague, unattentive answer and then moves on to the next question. I think this is classic Bob Dylan. I think, I definitely can see it as being disrespectful. I think he definitely doesn't really care that he won the award because he doesn't see his music as this big inspiration. It's just his passion and it's what he's always done, and I don't think that he is looking for recognition for it.
I am a bigger Bob Dylan fan than you.
No
I
doubt.
have song lyrics of his tattooed on my arm, and I do think that it is Dylan being Dylan. I just wanted an excuse to show the tattoo. We look at it when he went electric, when folk artists weren't supposed to go electric, and he did it anyway. Dylan does what Dylan wants. I do think that for the Nobel Prize, it is a big deal that a singer-songwriter has gotten it, because it is showing that music, the common man's art, is just as valid culturally as those snobby people with their nice English accents writing their long-winded poetry and novels. I do not think Dylan's being disrespectful by doing it, because I think that we always say, oh, you get a great honor, you're rude if you don't accept it. He has a right to think it over and how he views it. John Lennon threw away his medal that he received from the Queen because he was opposed to British policies. David Bowie refused to be knighted by the Queen because he said that he shouldn't be knighted for just doing what he did. He didn't think that just his music and his impact on people deserved knighthood. So I don't think that he's being disrespectful by doing it. I think he is being classic Dylan, and I do think that he has a right to think it over as to whether or not he wants the award.
All right, and that actually brings up, he brought up the difference between like authors and songwriters, and that actually has been a big controversy in this, is the fact, not that he necessarily won the prize, but he won the prize for literature, and since Ed kind of answered this, I'll start with you, Chris, but do you think it should still be called literature if they're going to give it to songwriters? Because even though they're both artists, there's a difference between Harper Lee and Bob Dylan.
Right, no doubt. Literature is just such a broad term, and I don't know what other term could be used to describe music and novels. I think it's great that a singer-songwriter can win this award, and I think it should still be that way. I don't know if literature is the most appropriate term for it, but off the top of my head, I can't think of another word that better suits the combined topic.
I think literature works well. It kind of encompasses many different forms of art. It doesn't necessarily have to be writing. I mean, music, like the lyrics of music is writing, and it's words that flow like poetry, like literature.
All right, well, it's a good debate, and actually that marks the end of our episode of Commotion, and our three panelists did a wonderful job tonight. And as a matter of fact, I'm looking at my scorecard, and I think this is the closest score that I've had as a host, so it was very hard to pick, but I have to say that my winner tonight is Chris. So congratulations, Chris, and you will get 30 seconds to talk about literally whatever you want. But first, be sure to check out this and other CTV programs on Time Warner Cable Channel 12, and also be sure to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Cardinal Television Fisher. Take us away, Chris.
Well, as the producer of Commotion. I am honored to win the show and be a surprise guest on it. May as well take this time to talk about attendance. Make sure if you're not going to show up to Commotion, you let people know ahead of time. That would be greatly appreciated. Tune in next week to our special Halloween episode of Commotion, hosted by our good friend Ed here, where our panelists will hopefully all be in costume.
I'll be in costume.
And Ed will definitely be in costume, and it should be a good time.